Really great to see you, Brian.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys, Jer.
I'm excited that you're with us and you're doing good. That's really cool.
Yeah, amen. I'm excited too.
We just told my story this week in church. Did you happen to catch it? It was
No, I
also
did.
on Facebook and all over the place. It's just a quick telling of my story and a little bit that happened.
Wow.
Of course, it pales in comparison to yours.
Well, I'll make
Uh,
sure I check yours out, though. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it.
we want to hear yours. Tell us about what happened and what was the date, for example?
June 7th.
June 7th.
June 7th. It was a Sunday, and a little piece of what happened that Sunday. I did what you do every week. I got up early, had prayer, whatever, went to church. We had a series that we were starting that day called True Blue. It was a series on friendship, about being godly friends, having accountability. And also in that day, we were honoring all the first responders in Berks County, and there were a ton of first responders, police, firemen, EMTs.
Wow.
And we had them stand. We honored them. We used it as an outreach, and a lot of guys there and gals that didn't know Christ. And so that was a great day. And that afternoon, we had, Lynn and I got home, had a little lunch, and my wife, who was a biker chick, said, "Hey, are we going to go for a ride?" And I said, "Well, yeah, we can go for a ride. We go for a ride a lot." So we headed up to Lancaster. It was a beautiful day. Had some ice cream, and 2.5 weeks ago, I joined Jerry again. I'm following his leadership. I became a grandpa, and back on June 7th, we were
Greatest
talking
thing
about
ever.
what's that?
It's the greatest thing ever.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Greatest thing God ever invented.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And Lynn and I were very excited to be grandma and grandpa, so we were talking about that. We had ice cream. We rode the motorcycle back, and at 6:08 that night, our lives changed. We were less than a mile from our house, and it's a really bad turn, which I've done 1,000 times. And we made the turn. A guy came up over the hill. He was drunk, 4 times more drunk than he should have been, and he hit us head on. And I only know this part because the captain of the police and the accident guy came to our house after I got out of the hospital like a month or so later. And he said, "Brian," he said, "I just want you to know 2 things. I'm not here to make you remember. I'm not here to get evidence. I'm here to tell you we respect you." And he said, "Your wife didn't suffer 1 second. She was taken instantly." And he said, "You did nothing wrong." And the SUV just about, well, it did. It amputated my leg. They cut it off with the scissors in the hospital. I had 17 surgeries. I wasn't awake for my wife's funeral. And it was a life changer.
Wow. 51 days in the hospital.
Yeah. And then I did about a week and a half of rehab after that just to get myself back to somewhat normal.
Wow. You look totally normal.
Well, yeah, and I'm feeling strong, and yeah, I had, thankfully I had a major concussion. I did have some brain stuff. You know how it is. You went through a wicked accident, and it just takes you a while to get back. You feel normal, but but now I feel strong mentally. Everything but my leg. Of course, both my hips were fractured. My pelvis was fractured. They took my spleen out. I punctured my kidneys, and I lacerated my liver. So I've got some other stuff besides just losing my left leg, but it's going to be all good. We're gonna make it, and my boys are doing well, and we're trusting God every day like you guys do.
Man, I didn't watch this week's sermon, but last week, your comeback week was, I got to tell you, it was so incredible. I really enjoyed the way the Holy Spirit used you, and it was powerful.
Yeah, well, thank God, Jerry. I thank God for that. As you know, it's only God. I mean, we were in an epic series. I didn't think I'd come back to a series. I thought I would just come back and share my story. But when we were on Epic with David and Goliath and Daniel and the Lion's Den, I thought, well, this has been an epic thing for sure in my life, epic in our church. And I have, back in the spring, we planned that I was going to talk on Moses. When you're stuck at the Red Sea, what happens? And we get to some tough places in life. So I've seen, as you have seen many times, and probably all of you as leaders have seen, God's hand on every detail. And last week was a great week. We ministered to 8,000 people, and there were over 120 salvations, and I thank God for that, because
Wow.
the day I got home from the hospital, the first full day I walked in my house after not being there since June, it was August 8th, and that was my 28th year wedding anniversary, and I thought, wow,
Oh.
how do you know, my first day at home, and I was married to my wife 28 years, and I had read my Bible that morning, as we always do, and I read Philippians 1:21, and I'll never, I've known this verse all my life, as long as I'm a Christian, and it said, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And I know Lynn has her gain, and I know I'm called to live for Christ. And, I was teasing the church because for years I've kidded around about being bald. I said, I've lost my hair, I lost my left eye playing with the White Sox, and now I lost my left leg. But I got a big heart, and we're going to make it. And so, yeah, the 18th was a good day. It was exciting to be back.
Man, I'll tell you, that's so incredible. I really love you for that. I love what you did, and how you did it was just powerful.
Well,
really.
Thanks, Chair.
So you've got some things to say to us today, and we want to hear them.
Yeah.
So I don't want to distract too much. Does anybody else have questions about the accident or about that whole event that you want to ask at this point? I want to give you that opportunity if you want to ask them. Go ahead.
Well, I just had a comment and a question. The fact that the driver of the SUV was drunk, I know, played a pretty big role in your church life, because we saw it from all the way here in Gettysburg. We saw how your church was responding with love and in a Christ-like fashion. How was that orchestrated? Who led the charge there, and how did that kind of? It probably happened pretty organically, but looking back, can you explain how everybody got behind that, and did it work well?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and I've been asked a lot of questions over the last month or so, and I've not been asked that. It actually will tie in a little bit to what I want to share with you guys and gals today about leadership. But I would give a strong credit to one of the gals on our staff who is the director of communications. Back when we were running about 2,000, I just realized that, man, we've got to communicate well internally, externally. We have to communicate well with our community. And thank God that we got that in place then, because the newspaper, the news, I mean, from Philadelphia, you name it. I'm doing 2 interviews today. And she led the charge on that and did a marvelous job. And I'm thankful for that. But, our staff, we told our staff, hey, you need to be very cautious. At least they told the staff, because I was totally out. They told the staff, you need to be very cautious in what you say, and what you say is going to have an impact. And for the most part, she just asked the media, the newspaper and the TV, to honor what we suggested. So Karen Troutman did a great job, fantastic job.
Awesome.
And honestly, we've been blessed by the newspaper and 69 News, obviously, because if I had lost control, if it had been my fault, the story would be over. But because a drunk driver did it, I read recently 3,200 people have been killed in Pennsylvania this year by drunk drivers. I don't know.
Eesh.
That's a lot. That's more than I thought.
That's incredible.
That's staggering.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I hope that's correct information, but it's intense, and they're going after this guy. And like I've said, if he spends 8 seconds, 8 days, or 80 years in prison, it doesn't bring my wife back. It doesn't bring my leg back. So I have forgiven Sean, and I've told the paper, Sean Eyrich, who did this to my wife and I, he needs what I needed, and that's the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. So we've released him. I'm not bitter. I want to be better, and I want to reach people for Christ. That's my focus in life. It's been 27 years, and I want it to continue. So that's a good question.
Yeah, that's really good.
Hey, I have a question. So I know we were with Jerry, and even just fascinated to hear what Jerry remembered and what he didn't. Did you, like even for your own mental, did you remember the accident, or were you not remember that, or is that something you struggle with?
I remember nothing.
He
hit us on a curve, on a turn. Like I said, it's a curve, but it's over the hill. He came up over the hill, didn't make the turn, hit his head on. I don't even remember being hit. The back of my thigh put out the exhaust on my motorcycle. I was pinched between the SUV and the motorcycle. When you look at the pictures of it, it's hard to tell people when you've lost your wife, you've lost your leg, that you've had miracles in your life. They didn't expect me to ever talk again because of all the pipes in my throat. They didn't expect me to have a prosthesis leg until 1 year and 6 months. And Lord willing, I'm praying I'm going to have it by Christmas. That's my Christmas wish list, by the way. And thanking Jesus for that. And so the one doctor who's the head of the trauma unit had been to the GT Church about 9 times before the operation. And when I woke up, he said, Bryan, I want to tell you something. He said, what's going on in your body isn't just amazing. He said, from a medical perspective, after doing this for 30 years, he said it's miraculous.
Oh.
And so to hear that, you guys know, to hear that from a doctor, they're very cautious in saying that. But I don't remember one thing about being hit, one thing. I don't remember anything about the accident. They said sometimes 6 to 7, 8 months later, maybe it can come back. But I never, and the guy is claiming that I was in his lane. And the chief of police said, your wife didn't suffer. You didn't do anything wrong. He came across the road, hit you head on. I've been doing accidents for 30 years. He said, Bryan, that's why he drove you into the ground. That's why you didn't lose your right leg. If he'd have hit you, if you'd have got hit in his lane or in the middle of the road. So, no, I don't remember one thing about it.
Wow. Wow. I don't either. I don't remember a thing about my accident.
Is that right?
The truck driver told the cops that he pulled out in front of me and created a situation I couldn't avoid, but I don't remember a thing.
Wow. Yeah, I know. It's fascinating.
My wife says, as a counselor, we can help you get those memories back if you want. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't need that memory.
Good the way I am. The first people that drove up to the scene, this is a fascinating story. They were from Pittsburgh. But he was the cousin of a guy that goes to our church. They were going to get something to eat. They drove up on the wreck. I met him this Sunday. His name is Joe Flock, his wife Tricia. And she said, Pastor Bryan, she said, my husband gets a little goosey and loosey just on a loose tooth. He said, we pulled up on your accident. It looked like a war zone. I almost bled to death. 2 people, first responders, brought me back to life with chest compressions and breath twice before I got to the helicopter. And he said he has horrible memories of the night, and I hate that he has that, but he just remembered. He actually pulled up and saw me pinned under the truck and said, well, I believe he's dead. So he went right to Lynn, and he prayed for her because he is a Christian. And when he got done praying, he realized his wife had called 911. When he got done praying, he realized that Lynn wasn't breathing, and she had already gone. And he looked back at me and thought they're both gone, and I had moved my arm. And so he came over and prayed for me. That time, first responders got there. Wow. So they came to a prayer meeting, and I really believe that was a big deal, and wow. Deeply touched us for sure.
Wow, wow, that is all stunning. I was so deeply touched by your accident. I think I told you this, that the next day I drove to Reading, and drove around the city and prayed for you. Your family had asked for privacy, and I respected that, but I had to be as close as I could. It was incredibly moving to me.
Well, that meant so much to me, Jerry, to hear that you came up and interceded for me, particularly on a motorcycle. It meant a lot when I heard that. And, the doctors were just saying that where I was, my mind, the medicine, they just felt like there were even family members that I didn't see. It only had to be immediate family, and that was induced by the doctors, and I understand it now. At first I was like, why all that? But that meant a lot to me to know that you came up and interceded for me on your motorcycle in Reading. Honestly, that's been the greatest gift I've received, and I believe it's why I'm doing as well as I am.
Yeah. I love you, man. Talk to us for a minute about whatever God has in your heart for us.
Well, it goes back actually to the question, and I don't know your name, brother, but it was a great question about our staff.
Jeremiah.
Okay, Jeremiah, thank you. And, I want to talk to you just briefly about leadership. You guys are all leaders that are listening, men and women that help lead at Freedom Valley, and so that's exciting. But, had a lot of experiences. There are many things I do remember about my life and my marriage and my church prior to the accident. I don't remember anything after church on June 7th. But one of the things I remember, I was driving home in my F-150 pickup listening to some radio, and I'll never forget this. This was about the end of May, right near my birthday. And I don't know, I was turning, I'm 51. There's been transition. I'm going to be a grandpa. There was a lot of change in my life. So I was listening and open. And the man on the radio said this. He said, "You'll never know what kind of leader you are until you're done leading." And I was like, wow. Well, that's kind of a fascinating comment. I thought, first of all, do I believe that? But you really never know the impact of your leadership until you're no longer leading. We're often, as leaders, we're maybe criticized, we're encouraged, we're prayed for. There's pros and cons to leadership. You guys know that, right? I mean, it can be good, it can be challenging, we can be questioned, we can be doubted, we can be followed. There's a lot of great things, and I thought, wow, that's a major thing. And I don't know if it was because I'm 50, if I'm going to be grandpa. I don't know if I was just thinking different, but I started thinking about in 10 or 15 years, or whenever God pulls me out of leadership at GT, then I'm really going to know how I've led. Well, I got to find out a little bit about that June 7th. Because I used to say to our staff once in a while, I just as a way of saying, it wasn't prophetic, it wasn't like, but I would say, hey, if I get hit by a truck, where are we at? What's the transition? What's the plan? What about the elders? What about the board? What about our ministry structure? What about the MLT, the LPT? All the structure we've set to lead this church. We know that Jesus Christ is the head of the church. We are under shepherds. All I am is a servant. We can call ourselves senior pastor, lead pastor. I'm an under shepherd. That's all I am under Jesus. But I found out June 7th a lot about my leadership in the church, and a big part of the story that's happened at GT isn't about me or the accident. It's about how our leaders responded. And so I want to just talk to you a little bit about, as a leader, there are things as Christians that we hold tightly. We have to. We hold the Word of God tightly. We hold prayer tightly. We hold all of that. In fact, I was reading about a couple days ago, I was reading in Revelation. Here's what it says. Revelation chapter 2, the end of verse 4 and verse 5. It says, or at the end of verse 24, it says to verse 25, "I will ask nothing more of you except that you hold tightly to what you have until I come." Jesus said, the only thing I ask of you is that you hold some of these things tightly. But, and we know that. We hold the Word, we hold God, we hold our salvation, we hold all the blessing of God tightly. But as a leader, what I want to suggest to you is if you hold everything tightly as a leader, it's going to change your leadership. And so, and we'll have time maybe for some Q&A and some comment and whatever. I'm not going to talk super long. But the thought is, as a leader, if you hold everything tightly, if you don't let your leaders lead, if you don't let the people that are following you lead, then that's going to restrict your leadership. It's going to hinder the church. It's going to be what we often heard as the law of the lid. And the church and the ministry will never grow beyond that. So let me ask a question. What are some things as a leader? We know what we hold tightly as a Christian. What would be some things that you think we should hold tightly as leaders? Got any thoughts on that? As a leader, what should I hold tightly?
I'd say culture.
Okay.
Church culture.
All right. What else?
Vision.
Okay. Vision. What else?
Sound doctrine.
Okay. Think of anything else?
Family.
That's good. I'm glad we don't have a long laundry list, because my belief as a leader, and I'm sure it's true of your lead pastor because I've watched him lead, we can't hold 150 things tightly. I often see organizations like even the Assemblies of God, which I love the AG, whatever, but we have 16 fundamental doctrines. Like, I wonder how many can you have that is still fundamental? We have 172 core beliefs. It's like, really, 172? We have 257 really important things. Really? 257? So what I believe, what we have to hold tightly as leaders, I basically at GT, I hold maybe three things tightly. We hold doctrine tightly. We hold vision tightly. Somebody said vision, and I believe that. and we ought to hold our values tightly. And someone who said culture, I would say, well, culture is maybe not held. Culture is either created, had, or not had, and I think it's held by the way we lead. And so I would encourage you as a leader, like I said, sometimes we don't find out how well we've led until we're no longer leading, and you think, well, that's kind of a bummer. I'd like to know now. Well, that's what evaluations are for, and that's about. But I would say if you hold the vision of Freedom Valley tight, if you hold the way, because a lot of churches, I remember back in the Assemblies of God, and I'm sure Jerry does too, when we had vision kits. There's 12,000 plus AG churches in America, all kinds of other churches. And now I think most churches get the idea, hey, we need a vision. It's like knock, knock. Yeah, we get it. We need a vision. But I think the thing that separates, you think of all the churches in Gettysburg. Do they have a vision for reaching lost people? I'm sure some of them do. Many of them do. But what are the values that Freedom Valley has that says this is the way we're going to lead people to Jesus? At GT, we value the Bible, we value spiritual growth, we value relationships, we value excellence, we value, those are the things we value. That's the way we go about it. And so holding vision and values tightly, I'm going to tell you what we shouldn't hold tightly. We can't hold every decision tightly. We can't hold every conversation tightly. We can't hold the budget super tight. We just need to hold vision and values tightly. And that's the way I've tried to lead. And I can tell you this summer when I was knocked out, and really the first 5 days they thought I was going to die. They thought I was going to die of infection. They thought I was going to die from I can't breathe right with my lungs. There were several things. They thought I was going to join Lynn in heaven. I was no longer going to live for Christ, but I was going on to my gain. And our staff was shaken, obviously. You remember how you felt when Jerry was in his motorcycle accident. And I remember praying for your church and interceding for your leadership because it's like, oh my goodness. And not only for his family and for his life and knowing he would go to heaven, but our church was like, this is unbelievable. The guy that has led us for almost 30 years may not continue to live. And so I really believe that the way you're leading right now, if it's life groups, if it's volunteers, if it's office, if it's outreach, I don't know what all of you lead in, but if you hold tightly 1,000 things, its chances are you're not a good leader. Jerry and I have both watched pastors that pastor 100 people. I know guys that pastor a 100-member church that hold things more tightly and more things tightly than he and I do pastor in large churches. And I say, is that part of the reason why they don't grow? Part of the reason why they're not reaching the millions of people in Pennsylvania and Delaware that need Jesus. So I just want to encourage you today as a leader, let your leaders lead. You say, well, what does that mean? Let them have, we don't hire people and, volunteers, recruit them to say, okay, hey, go do this, but you don't have authority. You don't have empowerment. Let's let them lead. And so what do we give them? What are some things we should give our leaders? We should give them authority. We should give them encouragement. And we've got to coach them. And our staff, we have 60 members on our staff, about 25 full-time and the rest are part-time. And like you guys, we have people that are on staff that maybe don't get paid, but they're key leaders. And every 120 days, we do evaluation. We talk about, hey, where do I got to grow? I'm a lead pastor. I've been here for 27 years. The secretary of the board, I do the same thing that all the staff do. I give an internal, I kind of look at my own leadership, and then they evaluate me as a board and say, hey, pastor, we think you need to get, a voice in your life. We want to send you here to get this training. We think you need to do that. You're doing a good job here. I believe that coaching is something we've got to give to the leaders that we let lead. So you give them encouragement, you give them coaching, you cut them loose, and then we see the things that we've seen at GT Church and at Freedom Valley. We see growth, we see churches planted, we see souls saved, and again, I'm sharing with people, I think, and leaders that know what I know. You guys have many times been peers. Your pastor, Jerry Stolzfus, has been a blessing to me, and watching him lead in the central part of the state has been awesome. And so I would just say to you, let your leaders lead, because there come a day maybe when we're not leading, and then we're going to find out how we've led. So that's kind of what's on my heart. I know
Wow.
you guys probably have day, but if there's anything you need to talk about, questions or comments, I'd love to.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
What is your value statement? What do you list in your values?
Well, number one, we list the Bible. We think that's the way that lives are transformed. So you could list prayer, you could list evangelism, then otherwise we just list what we believe. But the Bible is something that we deeply value and believe that everything else comes out of that. So that's the first thing. We value spiritual growth, which is made up of prayer and worship. We value relationships. In fact, when we started, we did a thing by Aubrey Malphurs. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's a great book by Aubrey Malphurs called, I think it's something on values. I can't think of the title of it right now. But we had 20 of our staff members. What I did was I gave them Post-it notes. And I said, values come out of what you believe. So I said, I want you to write on every Post-it note 3 values that you deeply value. So 20 staff members wrote down 3 values, and then we posted them all on the wall. So 20 times 3, there you go. You got 60 values. Well, we didn't have 60 because maybe 5 people said, I value excellence. I value relationships. Well, we came up with 12 initially. I think 6 years ago, we had 12 big-time values. Well, that made a nice calendar. We had one for every month of the year. It was pretty cool. But I thought it was too many. So we narrowed it down to 6 of them. And so we value the Bible. We value spiritual growth. We value excellence. We value relationship. And I'm trying to think. That's a kind of a godforsaken thing. Don't tell my staff. I'm trying to think of the last one. I'll get it to you before we go. But spiritual growth, the Bible, relationships. Family. We looked at hundreds of church values. Not one of them valued family. We're a family church. What about kids? What about teenagers? So it was awesome. So that's what we value. We state that. We've done series on it. We want people to know it.
Awesome. Okay. How about vision? What is your vision statement?
Helping people become fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. It used to be helping lost people, and then unsaved people would come in and say, I'm not lost. I'm on 1110 Snyder Road. I took the GPS here. We know people that don't know Jesus are lost, but we had a lady that came. She was a Christian for about 20 years. She walked into GT. She was and she said, do you guys really want me here? She goes, because I know you want to reach lost people, but I'm not lost. So we only changed our vision one time in the 30 years I've been here, and it was to say instead of reaching lost people, which we want to reach, that's who I want to reach. I want to reach the unchurched. I want to reach lost. And I can tell you right now, there's an increased influence at GT Church because of the accident that's happened. People that never knew about our church now know about it. People that never knew me know me. And we're getting opportunities to lead people to Christ. But it's helping people become fully devoted followers. Because if you've been serving them 20 years, it's still our vision to help you grow.
Yeah. I love that. Really great. Anybody have questions or comments you want to make? Tommy, I'm glad you got back on. Sorry about that. Tommy got booted off for a minute.
Oh. What is this you guys do? Is this something you do every month, Luke, or Jerry? What is it that you...
We do this every week.
Every week?
Every Wednesday, yeah.
That is awesome.
Tremendous privilege to have you back, Bryan, and to have you willing to be with us has been really incredible. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a privilege for me, Jerry, and it's great to be with your team. I love Freedom Valley and all that you guys are doing and have done for many years. I'm glad you're well, and I'm glad you're back.
You look totally back, man. You look totally back.
Well, I feel it. If I did this and showed you my residual leg, that's my floppy pants. So most of me's back, but in my mind, in my face, in my heart, I'm back, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is exciting, and I'm glad you're well, and I'm glad the church is doing good, Jerry.
Did they, in your rehab, did they have you try to make change and you had trouble with that?
Did they have me do what?
They asked me to make change, and I couldn't at first. I couldn't make change.
Oh, yeah, they were asking me, okay, they said, name as many animals you can in 1 minute. So I started in my backyard, raccoon, rabbit, and I kind of went blank, and I was like, whoa. Then they asked me to do maps. They asked me to do this. I said, listen, I said, dear, I don't know how to tell you this, but I probably could have done some of this stuff before the accident. I'm 51, man. I got issues. My kids would sit there and say, dude, that's wild. I couldn't have done it. So, yeah, I had some speech. Then the last day I was there at rehab, she said, well, what do you want to do? They were always having me set goals. So I want to put my sock on my foot by myself. That's my goal today. I want to use my left hand for something I haven't used in 51 years. That's my goal today. She goes, would you like to preach a sermon outline or write a sermon outline? I said, now that rocks, and that's a good way to end up my rehab. So the last thing I did at rehab was preach a message to 4 Catholic women, and that was probably the best thing I did.
That's awesome.
In 2 weeks. Yeah, that was amazing.
That's awesome. I didn't think I wasn't that thoughtful in mine. I didn't think that through. I wanted out of that thing so bad.
Oh, I hated it. Yeah, I wanted out too. It was brutal.
Horrible, but I had to get through it.
Yeah, that's same here, man. We traveled a lot of similar roads, Jerry. So I'm glad you're well. I'm glad I'm doing better, and thank God.
I'm glad I still have my left leg, though. I got to be honest.
Yeah, well, hey, I am too. And you know, I'm looking forward to my titanium one that I get before Christmas with a computer in the kneecap. I'm looking forward to that one.
In the kneecap.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because my hips are so messed up. Now, I didn't know this. You know, I've bought motorcycles. I have a house. I bought a couple cars. But the leg that we need to purchase is between 70 and 90,000. And I was like, excuse me? Is this going to last me the rest of my life? They said, no, if it works well and it's good, it'll last you about 8 years. I said, how long? 8 years. So that's the investment I'm making in my left leg. It's just ridiculous. I've learned a lot about being an amputee. And so, yeah, about a $70,000 leg that's going to last me about 8 years. But there will be a computer in the kneecap, which makes me scared. I'm not a computer guy. I was worried about getting on Google today. And so if the thing freezes up, I don't know what happens. It may go stiff like a pirate, but you know what? It's better than a wheelchair and walker.
Are you going to ride a motorcycle again?
Well, you know, my kids have asked me that, and we have a big motorcycle ride this week with Veterans Day outreach. Dave Reaver's coming. We're riding 100 bikes down to the inner city to help the homeless, and we're taking gear. And I'll tell you right now, I think I would. I really do. I think I'll see how this leg works. I wouldn't be afraid to hop on a Harley. I tell people, you know, Harley Davidson didn't do this to me because they were saying, should we have a motorcycle ride? Your wife was just taking your leg. I said, listen, we didn't stop missions trips. We didn't stop ministry. We're not stopping the Victory Riders motorcycle ride. Yeah. And I said, Harley Davidson didn't do this to me. A drunk man did it to us. And so, yeah, I'm not ruling that out. I'd be glad to get back on the bike like you are, man, and ride for Jesus. You bet.
That's
yeah.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah. And if the leg's bad, I still got a trike. You know what I mean? I don't need this left leg too bad if I can, right?
That's right. That's right.
A couple times you have asked what this is. Every Wednesday at 9, we get together. A lot of these people you see are church planters, most of them.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And
I know that. Yeah, that's awesome.
So there are 4 of us who are Freedom Valley staff, but the rest of them are church planters. Well,
that's fantastic, and what a privilege to see you guys and gals, and to see you reaching the lost, and that's a great thing. We looking for that too. I mean, that input and speaking to outside leaders. So every Wednesday, Luke, that's amazing that you guys do that.
Yeah, every Wednesday morning. You're always welcome to join us if you want to pop in.
Well, you know what? I may take you up on that. Would it be the same link, Luke, or no?
Pretty much.
No, I usually send out a different one, but I should make it a standard one so you can hop back on. I will be good.
Yeah, well, that'd be good. That's a very cool.
You can always just try to log into my name or Luke's name, and I think you'll get it. Right, Luke? Oh. I think so.
Oh, no, you can't just call the person. But I was saying you can do a permanent link, and we probably should do that so that people can hop back on if they want. I'll start doing that.
Probably should.
Well, it's a great idea, and it's been a privilege for me, man. I'll tell you.
Glad to have you part of it, Bryan. So we'll let you get on with your day. Thank you very much.
All right, you guys too. God bless you, and thanks again. It was great seeing you and talking to you.